Well, hello, Alicia. How are you? Back with another Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm doing well. The birds are singing. There's robins outside and chickadees, and it feels like spring, so that's
It
always
sure
nice.
does. I had an amazing walk in the coulees down here by the river with Simba yesterday, and it was so nice not to have wind, which we usually have here. So to be able to look out over the river bottom and just not have the wind blasting, and just the sun was so warm yesterday. The temperature said it was about 12 degrees Celsius, but the sun, when I was out in the backyard, I took my laptop and sat out there, it felt like it was at least 20 degrees. So it's nice. And if it truly is transitioning to maybe summer, well, we remember what the minister said about the program and the FSW and all that kind of stuff restarting in the spring. So we'll see how that plays out. We will see. Well, we'll wait a few minutes for people to connect in here. A couple little announcements that I want to make. First is that this broadcast is going out to a number of different locations, including our podcast. So, the Canadian Immigration Podcast, you can find that on iTunes or Spotify. And so, shout out to those that are listening. And you will also notice those of you who are tuning in on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, that some of your questions may not get answered. And part of the reason is with the system we're using, Restream, some of them are not showing up in my feed because there are so many coming in. So if we don't get to your question, it could be a number of reasons. One, it doesn't even appear because there are so many questions. Two, your question is so specific that really it should be responded to through a formal consultation, and it's not of general importance to everyone. And three, there's just so many, we just literally don't get through the feeds. So I wanted to give a little bit of a heads up there so that people are wondering. And one of my good friends, and I'm going to pull this one up right now, Ralph, and I was speaking with his sister Bella last night, and she said, Mark, I've been giving you shout outs, but you have not been pulling my comment or acknowledging them. And the reason to a large extent is because I don't see them. So there we have it. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks Alicia for joining us once again on another Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. And this is really a potpourri of everything related to Canadian immigration. We obviously cover the hot topics, and if there's any big announcements, we always lead with those. But this is really about providing information about immigration to guide you, to help you potentially avoid those most common mistakes that we see people make, and really for us as immigration lawyers to give back. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Alicia, before we dive right into the questions, but there's the little intro.
Yeah, I think that the major announcement, Mark, you've covered already. So that was back on Monday where they said that there were some changes to the temporary foreign worker program, and I know you did a little live about that. But that's been the biggest thing so far this week that they've said, a few changes largely to the low wage streams for LMIA applications.
Mhm. Exactly. And if you go to the YouTube, and this is the source really to get access to the recorded videos. It's been obviously a little bit popular. So we've got a little over 4,000 views on this one since Monday. It was streamed 2 days ago, really. So you definitely want to go check that out if you're in Canada and you're one of those individuals who's wondering when the minister is going to announce a new updated 18-month post-grad pilot, or whether he's going to do it at all. I'm surprised that they haven't done it to this point. But the expansion of the LMIAs, allowing some employers to now obtain labor market impact assessments for more people than normally they would, bumps from 10% to 30% in some industries, service industry, food service, things like that, 20% in others, and a departure from that 6% no process list for some industries. And it's interesting now they are recognizing that there may be high vacancy in some areas. In other words, employers desperately looking for people. And there may also be high unemployment, but that connection is just not happening with those unemployed people actually wanting those jobs. So that's what we're seeing is a recognition of that. And so we strongly encourage you to take a look at that. So that would be the announcement. Thanks, Alicia. And it will be spun out on one of our upcoming podcasts, so you can listen to that as it progresses from there. All right, so let's dive right in here, and we'll start answering some questions. Okay, let's see here what we can find. So the first question, and let me see if I can get this right here. They funnel in here so quickly, and I'm going to really try to pull from each of the different platforms, because some people are saying we only pull from YouTube, and that's not the case. Okay. Okay, so let's start the first one. This is from #nerds. Federal skilled worker, I'm assuming inland, so inside Canada, AOR September 2020. I proactively submitted an updated proof of funds on January 2022 via the case-specific inquiry. Funds were above the limit, except only for 1 week somewhere in between. Is that a problem? So proof of funds dipping down below at some point in time after the EAPR has been, submitted until present. Is that an issue, Alicia?
So on the federal skilled worker, yeah, you do need to prove your proof of funds, and you have to show that that amount is above the minimum amount that's set out for your family members. So based on your family group size, and that amount actually does fluctuate a little bit. So depending on if you submitted that September 2020, that would have been a different amount than it is currently. So take a look at what the current financial amounts are, and hopefully you are using the current tables rather than as they existed back at the time that you submitted. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But you do have to show that you've got 6 months of a history, ideally, of having that amount of money accessible in your account. And they are also looking at, do you have debts, right? It's not okay to have all of your funds in one account and then to have all of your debts hidden in the other account and just kind of sweep those under the carpet. But hopefully, as long as that's only been 1 week, and as long as you also included proof of funds when you initially submitted your application back in September 2020, then hopefully it should be okay. It depends on how far below that limit you went, right? Like if you pulled out all the money and something strange happened with that, but if you're talking a few dollars or a few $100s and then you got paid and it bumped back up, hopefully it's not an issue.
All right, let's see. So this is a Facebook user. We've got a big one here. Let's see if we can shrink this down just a little bit on our screen, if I can grab it. Oh, there we go. Big old comment. Stretch this one out. Okay. All right. So this one is from the Express Entry Law Private Facebook group. So that's usually what happens when we see a generic Facebook user. So, hi, Mark and Alicia. Please share something about the OINP French stream. It's been 2 months today, and could you tell what's your fees for study permit and the spousal open work permit together? Is it recommended to apply together, as no one has recommended me ever? What's your take on this? So, yeah.
So there's a few topics to cover in that. One thing, Mark, maybe you want to pull up Chanel's recent blog, because Chanel at our firm has also just done a recent article on our website. So if you go to the Healthy Immigration Law website and you go to resources and go down to our blog, Chanel has written an article on provincial nominations immigrating through Ontario OINP. And it's nice because it gives a snapshot of all the OINP programs here. So she's saying, a little bit about the background. What is a provincial nominee program here? And then how the OINP specifically works. So yes, you have to apply separately. Then she breaks it down, and there's certain types of applications that require you to have a job offer. And those would be the foreign worker stream, the international student stream, the in-demand skill stream. But then there's some types of applications that don't require you to have that job offer, and they're under the express entry streams. For French speaking skilled worker stream is here. So if you look there, there's a link back to the French speaking skilled worker stream itself through the Ontario immigrant nominee program, and it's going to give you the specifics on who's eligible, what you have to do, what are the stream requirements, and how do you prove it. So you do have to prove that you meet the same either federal skilled worker criteria or Canadian experience class criteria. You've got to make sure that you've got the education required for that program. You can follow through and just go and make sure that you meet the eligibility criteria. You also have to prove your French language, which is really important for the French-speaking skilled worker stream. In terms of our fees for study permits and whether it is advisable to do a spousal open work permit, we are going to be doing a follow-up on my article on study permits. So also on the blog, I have an article, Top 10 Reasons That Your Study Permit's Getting Refused, and we're going to be doing that right away here after this live stream is done. But we're also going to be talking about, is it advisable to do an open spousal work permit as part of that study permit? In terms of our fees, we do have our fees on our website also. So if you go to the Healthy Immigration Law website and look at fees, we've got most of them listed there.
Perfect. All right. And yeah, like Alicia indicated, when it comes to the OINP, I think one of the questions too that she was probably looking to was, when are they going to do another draw? When are they going to pull more individuals? And so this is something we've talked about a lot. And ultimately, it is entirely within the knowledge of the OINP what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And they really do not leak that information. So the key is to make sure your profile is updated, and then it's just a waiting game. Okay. Let's see here if we can get some generic stuff. Okay, we'll get this one from Kamel, and he says, "Hi Mark, I want to apply through Express Entry. My question is, which are the documents I need to prove my professional experience?" So do you want to tackle this? It's kind of a large open-ended one, but maybe we can just address just generally. I think it's, how do I get those extra points as a master's/professional
Oh, okay.
for education? I think that's where he's going. And I'll pull up the CS criteria while you're talking here.
Okay. So we've talked about this a little bit on the prior live stream, but there's two things that are important. One is meeting those minimum eligibility requirements and the selection grid of 67 points. Once you've met that, then we're going to be looking at the comprehensive ranking score. So this is your CRS score. You're going to get points in these major areas, right? Your age, level of education, languages, work experience, and then there are some that can combine and kind of boost your score. If you're specifically looking at education and professional experience, then this is going to be broken down into the level of education CRS. It's important to note that there are some types of degrees, and they are specifically mentioned here, and it has to be that you've done a degree in medicine, veterinary medicine, dentistry, optometry, law, chiropractic medicine, or pharmacy. If you have done a degree in one of those specific professional fields, then you should be getting points as long as your ECA shows that you've completed the education properly in that field. You should be getting points for that master's degree level because it says master's degree or professional degree needed to practice in a licensed profession. So that's where you're looking at those CRS breakdowns for education.
Yeah. And you can see, everyone, here that there's no accountant, there's no engineer. So you have to hit on these specific ones to be able to get by with the equivalent of a master's degree or that professional designation for those points. Otherwise, you're actually down here with your bachelor's degree. So
Yeah.
that's an important distinction to make. Okay, good question. All right. Eric says, when applying for a recognized organization work permit, what is IRCC looking for and how to increase success rate? A recognized organization work permit. I'm not sure if I
I
know
don't
what
know
Eric
if you
is
mean
referring
maybe
to.
an IEC, like you can apply under International Experience Canada with recognized organizations, but there's also recognized organizations in terms of GTS sometimes. So, um, Eric, we'd need more details on which
Yeah,
program you're looking at.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm deliberately trying to find ones that are in the different platforms here. So, okay.
And sorry, Mark, I'll just go back to Kamel's too, because he said,
Oh,
what
yeah.
documents do you need to prove
Oh,
that
sorry.
education? And if you are looking at the professional experience in terms of education, you need to have that education credential assessment. So make sure that you're getting that ECA through one of the recognized organizations. And we also recommend, in addition to having that ECA, if you're doing your express entry, have a copy of your transcripts and have a copy of your degree. Make sure that they're the originals. If they're not in English, also you need the certified translations.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we'll go to Rochelle here. And the question is, for September intake students, are we still good to lodge this in April? Or are we too late for the processing time?
So the nice thing that immigration has said that they have done is that they're updating the processing times on their website so there's a more accurate picture of what real-time processing is rather than the processing service standard. So, Rochelle, this really depends on which country of nationality you have and where you're currently residing. Because keep in mind, there are some countries where you're eligible for student direct stream. And if you happen to be from one of those countries, you have to be actually residing in that country in order to apply. But generally, if you look at the study permit processing times, it'll give you a 13-week general study permit processing time. This is not SDS, but this is kind of overall.
And this was last updated 2 days ago. So that gives you a little bit of a feeling for where things are at. Okay, so this one's from Joe, and he says, KUSMA intracompany transfers mention a requirement of specialized knowledge. Do KUSMA professionals also require specialized knowledge or just qualifications and experience in a listed profession?
Always talking about differences between ICT and professionals.
ICT and professionals, yeah.
Yeah. So no, the intercompany transfer provisions are different than the COSMA professional designation. So if you look at, well, normally I go to the LMIA exemptions codes page for the IRCC website, and you've got a breakdown there of the international free trade agreements. So it used to be called NAFTA. Now it's the Canada, US, Mexico Free Trade Agreement. But in the US, they say it's the other way around in terms
Yeah.
of their acronyms. But what we're talking about is the International Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the US, and Mexico. If you are a professional, you have to be listed in the appendix for professionals for this category. And so that requires you to have a degree in one of the listed fields in the annex and or a professional license to work in that field. It has to be listed in the annex, and the officers theoretically could actually ask to see your original degree when you're coming across the border. You have to be a citizen of the US or Mexico, and you've got to be able to prove that you're qualified to work in that job. So normally you'll also want to have letters of reference from prior employers, um, maybe some sort of tax documentation or pay stubs showing that you've worked in the occupation that you're claiming that you've worked in. But this is a different, it's not specialized knowledge, it's a list of which professionals qualify under the annex, and you have to have a degree and or license to practice in that field. Plus, you've got to be able to prove that you're qualified for the job.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next question. This one is from Paratosh, and he says, "Hi, sir. I have applied for a student visa in the month of September 2021 for January 2022, but haven't got any response. Please help what to do in this case."
Uh, Paratosh, I'm going to answer your question even though I'm not a sir, but
Yes.
here's the problem with that is that your classes have already started back in January. It's now April. And so depending on whether you've been able to get a deferral through your university or college, um, it might be too late if and when they issue a decision on that study permit to actually continue your studies. And so one thing right away would be to contact the college or university in Canada. It's got to be the designated learning institution, and ask to see if you can get a deferral to the next intake term. And depending on the program and the length of program, some of them only have once a year. Some of them have multiple intakes in a year, but you'll want to try to get a deferral and a new letter of acceptance showing that your enrollment has been deferred to the next intake. And then you'll want to update immigration and tell them that that's all happened and that, you're still enrolled, you've still paid the tuition fees, and you're still eligible for that program.
Okay, next question here is from Nisha. Is CRS 350 a good score for CEC?
Um, so it's hard to say, Nisha, depending on which province you're looking at, if you might have the possibility of getting a provincial nomination in addition, um, and also how long your work permit is valid for. So a 350 CRS, it's not a slam dunk, right? That's not something that you'll probably get a straight up CEC draw for, um, based on historically what they've been issuing CEC draws at in terms of your recommended or required CRS. However, it might be enough to be able to get you a provincial nomination. For example, in Alberta, if you want to apply through the Alberta PNP program, you have to have a minimum score of 300. So some of the provinces will allow you to have a 350 score, as long as you usually often have to have a job offer from an employer in that province. So it depends.
Okay. Here's a question from Alahan, and he says, the police clearance certificate request from TR to PR, do I really have to obtain them hand signed or PDF document is enough? I currently have both Canadian and home country police clearance certificate to upload, but they're virtual docs and not signed.
Hmm. So I'm wondering what your home country
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Um, but immigration is very picky in terms of they want to make sure that you have followed the instructions on their webpage in terms of when you look up IRCC and police certificates, it's going to give you a drop-down list and it'll give you instructions for how to apply for that police certificate from every country. And you've got to follow that quite exactly. Um, Make sure that when you're uploading that document that it actually is the color copy of the document, the original document without any stamps or seals or anything else. And then if it's not in English, you've got to get a certified translation also. But it's a reason for refusal, usually on express entry anyways, for them to refuse if you haven't uploaded the original document. So I don't know if your original document is coming later and this is just like a placeholder document that you're getting, or if they've been issued in a different fashion. But hopefully you followed the instructions in terms of immigration and what to do to get a place certificate for your country.
All right. Here's an interesting one. Okay. So this is from Tourism Bilaspur. What are the basis funds we need to show for work permit visa applications for outside of Canada?
So there is no set limit, right? There's nothing where it says you have to have X amount of funds to be able to apply for a work permit, from outside Canada. However, depending on your family size, you have to be able to show a valid temporary intent. And normally, if you're coming for a Canadian job, hopefully you have a Canadian employer. I guess it's possible that you're coming under some sort of non-employer specific program, like an open work permit. But generally, if you're bringing your family, they want to see that you're able to support yourself. If you're going to come to Canada and you don't have a job offer from a specific employer, that's where you should have to show, or you should show at least enough money to be able to support yourself until you're able to find a job in Canada.
Perfect. All right. While you've been talking, I went through and I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing anyone who's posting comments in the other channel. So I think we're actually doing pretty good here. So we will continue with our YouTube questions. Okay, so Ravi says, is it returns as mandatory for Canadian student visa? Uh, I think tax is what he's talking about. Are Indian tax returns mandatory for Canadian student visa? I'm not sure what IT refers to. Um,
Mm.
Not sure. Ravi, maybe you can clarify that one and repost that question because I'm not quite sure what that means. So, okay, let's zip into here. Okay, so this Facebook user, I'm not sure I don't think I pulled this one up yet. So did upfront medical exams, and I got passed on my profile February 25th. And since then, no update. My AOR is October 2020, Ottawa Visa Office. Do you recommend, Alicia, also police clearance certificates in Schedule A upfront? So should people, be, and I think I'm going to do a video on this, Alicia, because I had 2 consultations yesterday where I worked with clients to actually update and respond to an IRCC request. One didn't ask for updated medicals, and they were outside of Canada, which was quite surprising because they were expired. They were beyond the 1 year, and they made the decision to waive them. The other one did have medical request as well as police certificates and Schedule A, but Schedule A and PCC was consistent amongst them. So what is your position in terms of proactively going ahead and doing that and uploading it via web form?
Yeah. I mean, normally the PCC, yes. A Schedule A, I don't normally recommend that people do a new Schedule A unless they have moved or unless something has changed in their application. Family member or baby's been born or something's changed with their marital status. But I guess if you're going to do the police certificate update anyway and put that in via web form, and you want to update the Schedule A and just say nothing's changed, sign off on it, have a new date, make sure it's all still correct, then you could also proactively do that. It's not clear to me which kind of application you did, but I'm assuming because the AOR was a while ago, it was probably an outside federal skilled worker.
All right. Next question is from Joe. Joe says, I'm lodging a student visa this weekend, but my Brunei police clearance will arrive in 2 more weeks. If I wait for it, I might be too late. Will it be okay to just upload it when it arrives from Dubai?
Joe, I'd need more information. I'd need more information to figure out, a little bit more about your personal circumstances here to try to, because this is going into the realm of advice rather than of information. So it depends. I mean, generally, if it's required because you've been in a country where you have medical requirements or police requirements, um, you should upload it. But if you are going to be missing your deadlines, the situation can change. So it really does depend on knowing more about what's happening for you here.
Yeah. And I know Joe did he also had this additional comment. He says school starts in September, so we're April now. He's located in Dubai. Is he too late? As you mentioned, it was like 113 days. And I think when we look at the processing times, which we were examining a little bit previously, if we flip over here just to remind Joe here, for study permits from outside Canada, they're actually listed at 13 weeks right now. And this was just recently updated on the 5th. So realistically, if we can trust these, there probably is still time. That's, a little over 3 months processing, April, May, June, July. It's cutting it a little bit close, but that might impact your decision making a little bit in terms of what you ultimately decide to do. But when we get these types of situations where the questions being asked are specific and relate to decisions you're actually going to make, we strongly suggest that you slide over to our site here and click on Speak to a Lawyer, which will take you here to book a consultation. And the link's below here with all of the live Q&As as well. And you can click on here. And I wonder if Alicia's got space even. Let's see. So Alicia doesn't have any spots on Friday.
Next week. I got time next week.
Next week, yes. But you're not, even if you intend to submit them this weekend, it's not going to make the end of it's not going to be the end of the world if you wait a little bit longer. So there you go, Joe. Okay, let's get to another question here. All right. So the next question we have is, let's see here, is from Alana. And Alana says, after NB transportation, trade sector recruitment event, okay, New Brunswick, I'm assuming, did a recruitment event and attended information session invite. What happens? I registered into it with my Express Entry profile. Okay. this is one that's completely, I'll step in here, Alana. This is completely outside of our experience here. So some provinces, if what I understand, what you're saying is correct, they have processes where they, send invitations, and these events are designed to match employers with foreign workers, especially in provinces where there's high labor shortages. And they're just trying to make connections for employers and foreign nationals to meet, right? And so this one, I don't think, Alicia, you're familiar with this particular event. Recommend that you reach out to whoever the contact person would be with that event, if there is one. Otherwise, yeah, not able to answer that, unless you have some insight that I'm not aware of, Alicia.
No, I mean, this is all separate from federal immigration, right? It's each province is trying to do something to target specific sectors. And so maybe there will be a linkage with a provincial nomination, which probably is what you're hoping for. So do follow up with whoever has organized that recruitment event, and see if there are concrete next steps for you.
All right. Well, on the lighter side, I am going to pull this comment up from Thesura. He says, I loved the immigration help desk episode, and it was hilarious. Hope you make similar videos in the future. Well, that's very good, because we were just talking about this. We did a little evaluation yesterday afternoon on the effectiveness of my fun little immigration help desk video. We've got a little over 1,000 views here, but it hasn't had quite this similar uptake to some of the other videos. And I think YouTube is probably wondering what the heck I'm doing, because it's not traditionally these lighthearted little, scripted and highly edited videos that are produced here on the channel. So thank you, Thesura, for that shout out. And if you guys are interested and you want to check it out, just go to the YouTube channel, and you can see right on the YouTube channel, it's called Immigration Help Desk. And yeah, go check it out. Basically, I had individuals post comments. I on my Twitter channel, I said, I'm an immigration lawyer, ask me anything. And we pulled out, I think, 15 of the questions, and I answered them. But I had help from my little friend here, George, who was an immigration advisor with, yeah, he's got his own WhatsApp group with 40,000 people in it. So he's pretty smart, and he's immigrated himself. So I said, well, hey, you got to be the expert, George. So I'm going to bring you on to answer the difficult questions. So we had a lot of fun making that. And yes, I am holding a wand, a magic wand, which one of the individuals told me to wave it. So I did. And you have to watch it to find out what the answer was from the magic wand. Okay, let's jump to another one here. All right, so this one, let's see if we can pull it up here. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, so this one is from Tasia, and she says, hi, Mark and Alicia. Is it okay to get only a remedical request for an FSW applicant? So AOR is October 2020, and not get a police clearance certificate and additional document request. I only got remed so far, no additional document request. So, like we've said, we see a lot of Schedule A requests as well as PCCs, but usually they're accompanied by medicals, but we haven't seen too many people just get the medical. And obviously it depends upon how long your application's been in the queue. But what are your thoughts on that one, Alicia?
I mean, theoretically, it is possible for somebody to have a medical condition that immigration wants to follow up on. And if that's the case, if you have or your family member has some sort of medical condition, maybe it's something you didn't even know about until you did the immigration medical, and it's required further follow-up tests or blood work or CT scans or something like that, then do probably reach out to an immigration lawyer who has experience with medical inadmissibility, just in case. Like if you know that there's something that could be a medical issue, you're going to want to start preparing your counter case as soon as possible. So that is something. But if you don't have any medical issues, if there was no other tests or things that were required as a follow-up to the general standard battery of tests, then hopefully it's just because they're staggering their document requests.
Okay, next question is from Silence. Wow, I wonder how they got that YouTube handle. Okay, I applied under Express Entry through the OINP PNP in June 2021. How much time should I expect for the finalization as an outside Canada profile? Your guidance is super important. Thanks in advance. Well, just like everybody, I'm going to show you very carefully here. You can go and you can look this up yourself. All you have to do is do a Google search and just type in IRCC processing times. Once you're there, you can hopefully reliably rely on this this information in here. So if we go here, and you've indicated, I think it was PNP Express Entry. So if we go to economic immigration, and then we go which economic class, there is provincial nominees right here. And then it asks you Express Entry, yes. So if that's the case and you click on here, you can see it's sitting right now at 22 months. And I believe straight up PNPs without Express Entry are about 27 months, if I'm not mistaken. So that is, that's the source of all goodness, our friend. Okay. All right, let's see. Next question here is from Vanessa, and she says, if I've lost my status in Canada, is there any way or program I can apply under to get legal status again or PR? What are my options other than restoration? So I'm going to start off by ringing that bell.
Yeah. So Vanessa, this is a super complicated question. Why did you lose your status? What happened? How long have you been here? Did it recently expire? I mean, you can only apply for restoration if you're within the 90-day period from when your status was last valid. So restoration is a very short-term kind of thing, and normally you have to have an underlying reason or the ability to restore to something. So if you had a work permit and you have no underlying basis for that work permit anymore, then it's really difficult to restore unless you now have an LMIA and a new employer. If you've lost your status because of some sort of inadmissibility or misrepresentation or anything like that, then that's a big issue and would require much further discussion. Oh, Mark, I think Simba might have muted you.
He always does that. Every time he ends up walking across my keyboard and stepping on the mute button on my my nice little Rode Procaster that I've got here. So yeah, there's lots of times, you guys, we get these questions from people who it really does require an immigration consultation. You can see Alicia and I are delighted to share information, but when it comes to something as serious as this, and the consequences are really, really off the charts, it's not something we could even dream of trying to give you a useful response in a simple, live stream here. And we need to get into some pretty, personal information that just wouldn't be appropriate in a live stream chat. So, all right. So do head over, and like we said, the link is in the description below. All you have to do is head over to our site, click on Speak to a Lawyer, and it's so easy, you guys. All you have to do is click on here, and you can choose the date that you want to book the consult, and there's availability. So Alicia is popular. So she does not have a lot of spots open on Monday. Tuesday starts to free up a little bit more, and this is in real time. And it's quite amazing. I'll be honest, when we're looking at this, as a firm, we're always trying to plan our schedules and our calendars and trying to make sure that we've got availability for consultations. But you guys are real-time folks. So very rarely do we have people book consultations out, say 2 weeks from now. You want to consult today, right? Just like the same reason that you are here watching this live right at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Mountain Time on Thursdays. You're hoping to get that answer right now so that you can make a decision and you can move forward. And so one of the things I love most about the firm is the fact that we have multiple immigration lawyers that can help you. And if Alicia doesn't have time, maybe I have an opening in my schedule. And if we don't, then there's Chanel who has an opening in her schedule. So we're all immigration lawyers, all fully able to help and really want to. So if you can't find the lawyer a spot right away that you need with one, don't hesitate to reach out to the other. And I'll let you in on a little secret. We talk about everything together anyways. And so if there's any tricky situation that comes up with clients who have real difficult situations, we put our thinking caps on together and collaborate. So you're really getting 3 lawyers for the price of 1. All right, let's keep zipping through here. Next question. Okay, here's an interesting one. So Mr. Rubel, 1990, says, are the processing time updates for previous files or currently uploaded files? And that's actually a good question. If we slide over here to the web and we look at this here, let's take sure, we'll go economic immigration, and then let's go with federal skilled worker. Okay, well, let's go with CEC because, yeah. So this is the issue right here. So many of them, and I'll just walk through this, Alicia, but many of the processing times you'll see have an option which says, have you applied already? So if you've applied already, you can select the processing time here, get processing time, and it says for CECs 8 months. Sometimes if you say, no, I haven't applied yet, then sometimes the processing time will be listed at something different. In the case of the Canadian Experience class, it's the same. So they expect that it's going to be 8 months if you submit it today. And based on when they last did the update for this, 8 months is basically for that particular program. It doesn't matter which, but for others, it isn't. Let's take, for example, permanent resident cards. Okay. And then you say, did you submit a PR card? I'm renewing, or no, I'm waiting for my first one. So if you're waiting for your first one, the processing times are listed at 102 days. But if you have not, or you're just renewing it and you check the processing times, it's 105 days, so a little bit longer. So hopefully that kind of addresses that previously filed or currently uploading. So you just have to toggle the one that applies. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure we can answer this one, but Vasilisa says, Federal Skilled Worker Outland 2020 got the document request, police clearance, proof of funds, and meds. And we haven't really talked about proof of funds, plus receipt of information from client. Okay, please ask the principal applicant to provide biometrics fingerprints by May 4th, 2022. What does it mean? No biometric instruction letter, no fingerprints given before. I've never seen anything like this. I will once again ring that triangle because we need to get a whole bunch more information on there because that kind of a request is really quite unusual. Obviously, if they're coming from a country where the person needs fingerprints to request police certificates, that's one thing. But provide biometrics fingerprints, I don't know, Alicia. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, if you've previously done biometrics, you can check in the tool to see if that biometrics is still updated. But if they're asking you for biometrics again, then you would need to give biometrics. But normally you can't go and do that until they give the biometrics instruction letter, the BIL. So I'm not sure why they wouldn't have sent you the BIL.
Yeah, I think we need, and there are glitches, there are problems. One of the things that I'm going to do when I do this video on responding to ADR requests is for FSW especially. One of the things you have to realize is that there are mistakes sometimes in those letters. Like sometimes we'll get those back and the date that they've listed there for when you need to respond is the same date that the letter was issued. It's clearly wrong. And then you go into your MyCIC portal and then you're freaking out because it also says the expiry date is that wrong date. But then in the letter, it says you have 30 days to respond. So stay tuned for that, and we'll dive into that. But it could be a mistake. It could be just a glitch. We know that the system is a disaster too. So, all right. Next question is from the Arsenal fan, Neomis. He says, I'm a current student in Canada. I changed my degree program at the same university to another degree program with the same length. Do I need to let IRCC know I've changed my program? Will I need a new study permit?
So this is specifically addressed on immigration's website. So if you look up IRCC and change of DLI, it will give you some instructions on how to do this. The answer is yes, you do need to let immigration know. There are 2 ways to do it. One is the method that they have on the website where you can just inform them of the change. There's a specific way to do it, and you'll want to follow that carefully. The other one is that it's always an obligation for students to comply with their study permit conditions. And so if you have a study permit that says a particular program and a length on that program, and you're switching programs, in your case, you're saying it's the same university and it's the same length. So that's good. But sometimes when people are changing universities or changing the length of the program, it might be advisable to actually go and change your study permit. But here's the website information from IRCC, you do have to tell them. It's important that you do tell them, because otherwise you're breaking the conditions on your study permit and they can ask you to go, right? You can, even if you have that study permit, they can say you're not complying with conditions. But there's a different process if you are outside Canada versus if you're inside Canada. And this is if your application's still in process, if your application's been approved, and you want to change it, then yeah. So
Yeah.
there are ways to follow these instructions to change your DLI in your online account. And so that's where you'd click that hyperlink, it'll bring you to the next page for how you change the actual, I guess, program, because you're keeping the DLI and the length of the program the same. So the name of the program that you're taking. The other thing though is that, yeah, if you're just continuing on, so if you're going from one program to the next program, that's a little bit different. But what I will say with respect to changing programs is just be careful that you still have a rationale for why you're studying in that new program. So if you changed from like civil engineering to, I don't know,
Underwater basket weaving.
sure, underwater basket weaving, then immigration would probably question why, right? So you're going to need to have a really good letter of explanation about what it is about the new program, how it relates to you as a student, how it relates to your prior education and your career aspirations, and how it's going to tie back to employment in your home country. So just do be a little bit careful about change of programs.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to. Obviously, when you're in Canada, when you request to change programs, it's not as significant a factor, I guess, if when your study permit's already approved, as if you're outside of Canada. Because as you've all have seen, and this is a big plug for Thursday, this Thursday, I want you to watch because this will pop up on our channel. And if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, you better do it. So the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, watch here for our scheduled lives. Next Thursday, Will Tao is coming back to join me, and we are going to once again release another level of updates on the Chinook processing system. Will's got further details on how they're using it in India and China to process temporary resident applications. And there is a very, very strong indication that how they're doing this will also be extended out to PR programs, including express entry. So make sure that you go to our channel, and if you have not yet subscribed, then absolutely do it. Hit the bell notification button when you see this come up, and it will allow you to then get notified when we go live. But 3 p.m. Mountain Time next Thursday, a week from today, Will and I will be doing another one. And as I've said repeatedly in the past, you can search this channel for just about everything. And so we have already done 2 really, really popular videos on the Chinook system. One was about 7 months ago. We've got about 12,000 views on this one. And this is really, if you can understand what's going through the mind of an officer and their use of these artificial intelligence, it will help significantly in knowing how to prepare your application to give yourself the best chance of success. And then we did an update just 3 months ago. I think it was in December, on the Chinook system. And once again, we are doing another one that is going to dive considerably, further into the inner workings of Chinook than even we did on this one 3 months ago, which has over 21,000 views. So absolutely pay attention to that, share it, let people know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And this is one that you're not going to want to miss. And just to add one more element to what Alicia said, and just to reiterate this, if you're outside and you're looking to change a program and you're midstream, that program is directly related to the decision as to whether or not your study permit is approved or not. And your whole study plan is all associated with that particular program. And when you start to monkey with that midstream, everything can crumble around you. So please, please be careful. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to book a consultation, and we can help you navigate that process.
And Miss, the last thing I'd say too is if you just decide to do that online process to change your current study permit because you're still at the same DLI and you still have the same length, make sure to keep good documentation and screenshots showing that you've done that. Pardon me, because the issue then will be you'll have a study permit, but it might have the wrong program of studies on it. And so you'll need to be able to justify later on to immigration that you did notify them and you did comply with your study permit conditions by properly notifying them through that online method.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, let's just see here. Yeah, acronyms. People are like mocking us for not understanding what IT was. Apparently, maybe that's, international. I guess everybody's trying to guess. They don't even know what that means. That was that previous one that we had. Okay. So Kat says, for a refused student visa because of progression of studies, should one relodge with the same course or choose a different course for international students? So I'm suspecting this relates to someone who maybe has a master's already and is applying for another master's program or something equivalent or at the same level to what they've already obtained.
Right. And this is really figuring out what the rationale, what the logic is for requesting this particular program or course of studies in Canada. And if they've already refused you because they don't think it makes sense in terms of your progression of studies, then I think it'll probably require some discussion in terms of what's your background, what's your history, what are you hoping to achieve, how are you going to use this Canadian education and prove that you're going to use it back home for your career advancement. So it really does depend. I'd need more details from you, Kat. But do stay tuned because we're doing a whole why your study permits get refused. And this is one of the reasons is it doesn't have a logical progression or it doesn't show a connection between what you were doing and what you want to do.
Yeah. And that will be a recording that Alicia and I are going to be doing actually in about 5 minutes here. And so watch on the YouTube because we're going to start releasing more videos that are shorter, that are just much more targeted and focused. And that is one of them. And so watch, and that's another reason to subscribe to the channel so that you can get notified. And that will be YouTube exclusive. So it will be released just on YouTube. Okay, Pranav over on our Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Should one acknowledge discrepancies in work experience in an old express entry expression of interest while applying for new study permits?
Yeah. Yes, you should.
Yes.
So if you have discrepancies and hopefully you've kept copies of your prior applications and you know what you've put on there. This is another big reason why it's really important that you do it yourself or you have somebody that knows what they're doing helping you so you can keep a copy of all that documentation. And if you realize later on you made a mistake or you forgot something and now you need to correct it and there's a discrepancy with your new study permit application, you need to tell them why. And it's specifically because immigration can now very easily stand up that first application for your old express entry. And I'm not sure if it was just a profile or what happened there, but they can look at that old express entry and they can look at the study permit and they can compare all those fields, your work history, your address history, your travels, all of that. And if there are things that don't make sense, it's possible that they can think that you're misrepresenting. And that's the worst case scenario. That's a 5-year bar.
Excellent. All right. Joe follows up. He says, thanks so much. I'll find time next week to book with Alicia. By the way, my deadline to submit this study permit will be on July 1st. That's why, Bow Valley College. So that's what's operating. And Alicia's in Calgary, Joe. So right in line. And I think, Alicia, you actually were an instructor. Was it at Bow Valley that you did the immigration practitioner course? There you go. Lots of connections there. Lots of connections. Okay. Okay, I'm going to pull this one up here to the Canadian Soul, who I love your profile picture. This is ridiculous. I wrote down 20 times my query. You guys just focusing on money chat. you losing one subscriber. All right. See you later, Canadian Soul. My heart goes out. I'm feeling really bad that I lost Canadian Soul. My dear friend, Canadian Soul, none of your chats appeared. So I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. Okay, moving on. All right. Let's see here. Next one. Okay. Mohit says, my parents just got their passports stamped. They were sponsored by me for PR in 2019. They have to enter Canada by October of 2022. Can they delay their entry to Canada next year in 2023 summer?
So I'm assuming you were sponsoring parents or grandparents, but were you actually sponsoring them for PR under the parent and grandparent category? It seems like it, rather than a
I think
super
so.
visa.
Yeah.
And if they actually have to enter it, they've got a landing date, then why would you not comply with that landing date? It's super important that you're going to follow through. And especially if you've got that parent and grandparent, it's a lottery, guys. Like you can't just get these. You can't apply and have them processed as in a first in, first out. So it would be really risky if they're not going to try to travel by October 2022, and that's the date on their COPR that they actually have to arrive by whatever time's been stipulated. It was the case that during the pandemic, immigration had made an exception to their normal rule, and they were allowing people to delay coming to Canada even though they had a COPR that was expiring, and then they would sometimes reissue those documents. But it was taking a really long time. And after the pandemic, now that this has not been as acute, or the world has kind of started to adapt to the pandemic, they no longer say that they will do the same thing. They no longer say they will indefinitely push off landings or that you could travel on an expired COPR. So it would be really risky, and I would highly recommend that if your parents are wanting to still come as PRs, that they definitely come before October 2022.
Okay. And I did a search back, and guess what I found, Alicia? I found our bloody-faced Canadian Soul's question. He says, hi, got proof of funds and IMM 5669 request from IRCC for PR file. And then the question, the follow-up was, is it good or bad? I'll answer this one. It's good. It means your application is going forward. Unless you lied and they're then trying to determine if you misrepresented something in your application and catch you in that lie. So like a failed visa refusal and you didn't include it in the first one. So there we go. Alicia's horrified because I'm giving Canadian Soul a hard time. I get irritated when people are getting free advice and then they get irritated when we don't answer everybody's question. Okay, well, there we go. Hopefully you haven't left us, Canadian Soul, and that we haven't lost another subscriber. That would be terrible. I really would be disappointed if you felt that we didn't care about you. So there you go, my friend. Good luck. Good luck. Okay, last question. All right, we'll get this one from Zana. And Zana says, hello, Mark and Alicia. I applied TR to PR. I got an AOR November 29, 2021. Eligibility, security passed. Now I'm going to travel to my country. What's going to happen if I receive my portal when I'm not inside Canada? This is the TR to PR pathway, and we'll end with this one.
Yeah. It's a condition on the TR to PR pathway that you have valid status in Canada at the time you submit your application and when your application is processed. And here's the problem. We don't know when your application is going to be finally processed. So it is always a risk if you are going to travel, because who knows? They could actually say, great, Zana, we're ready to land you, and you happen to be outside of the country, and it's possible you could lose your PR because of that. So be very, very careful. Please stay in the country until your application is finalized. You've come so far, you're almost there. Yeah, if you want more specific advice, then you can talk to us more specifically and see what's going on in your situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. And we have at least one person that's happy with me here. Kat, thanks for thanks for your insightful questions. If it wasn't for what you guys have done, we really, really appreciate just all of your support and everything. These live Q&As wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for all of your assistance and in asking good questions. So thank you for tuning in. Alicia, thanks. And we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you guys. Well, I'll be around next Wednesday, but watch those who are listening on the Canadian Immigration Podcast. There's going to be a number of videos coming out as well. And hopefully we're providing some assistance to some of you. Okay. Take care.